My name is Oliver Hoffman. I'm the head of Asia for Erste Group, and I'm currently the vice chairman of the ABA. I will be your moderator today, and the topic of today's webinar is Mongolian Banking, Current Status and Opportunities. Let me introduce Amar to you. Amar is the Chief Executive and Secretary General of the Mongolian Bankers Association. He started his career at the Central Bank of Mongolia in 2001 and held different positions there, including that of project coordinator for the World Bank Financial Capacity Development Project and as supervisor of the Supervision Department. Prior to joining the Mongolian Bankers Association, he worked for the Asian Development Bank from 2011 to 2019. His responsibilities there included macroeconomic analysis, policy advice formulations, public relations, and additionally strategy formulations and business plan development for ADB supported projects in Mongolia. Amar holds a Master of Science degree in Banking and Finance from the Luxembourg School of Finance and a bachelor degree in Economic Studies from the National University of Mongolia. I now would like to hand over to Eugene Acevedo for his welcome remarks. Eugene, of course, needs no introduction. He's the Jamie Dimon of the Philippines banking industry. He is the president and CEO of Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, one of the largest banks in the Philippines. And he, of course, is the current chairman of the ABA. Over to you, Eugene.
Thank you, Oliver. Mr. Amar, Chief Executive and Secretary General of the Mongolian Bankers Association. Mr. Hoffman, Vice Chair of ABA and Head of Asia for Erste Group. I've been looking forward to this event because Mongolia is a fascinating country with a very interesting history and with huge continuing economic potential. It also happens to be located between two of the most intriguing countries in the world. Like you, I am very keen to know more about the country in general and its financial sector in particular. We are grateful to the Mongolian Bankers Association for being the first in our series of activities designed to build a bigger network and new relationships between ABA members. Thank you once again, and good afternoon. Back to you, Mr. Hoffman. Thank you, Oliver.
All right, I think Amar, you can start your presentation now. Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you for all the introduction, Mr. Hoffman, and I'd like to start the presentation from introduction of the country. As you mentioned, Mongolia is sandwiched between two major economies, and it of course creates potentials, and also there are some drawbacks as well. It's because it's landlocked, seaports are not readily available. That's why we have to get our products to the ports through one of these neighboring countries. And of course, you can understand the difficulty of dealing with these huge giants. The good side of this is that we are now very close to the major market, which is vibrantly developing in the past 20 years. And I'm talking about the PRC, People's Republic of China, and 90% of our exports are directed there. So it means, and also 90% of that exports are commodities. So it's natural resources, mostly copper, coking coal, and gold. So we are like highly dependent on this natural resources in terms of exports. But because Mongolia has like almost all the natural wealth, that's why we are very resource-rich country, and the potential is there. But there are, I would say, challenges in terms of governance, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of soft infrastructure. So we are in the process of development, and the natural resource boom, which started basically mid-2000, is now still ongoing. Our economy is still, of course, there are up and downs because it's highly reliant on the macro commodity prices. The economy is also swinging with that prices. On average, the Mongolian economy has been favorably influenced by the last, I would say, economic development in the PRC for last 10, 15 years. Traditionally, the economy was based on the herding, agriculture, but now it's mostly transformed into extractive industry. Mongolia has, as I mentioned, like extensive deposits of copper, gold, coal, molybdenum, fluorspar, or uranium, tin, and tungsten. So Mongolian banking sector was, during Soviet time, it was one tier system where the central bank will take the role of the commercial banks and also the central banks. But since 1990, Mongolia has transformed into a market economy and the democracy. The Mongolian banking system was also divided into commercial banks, and the central bank as the global trend is. So that's where we are now, and we have now 12 banks operating. Out of them, 5 are systemically important banks. We have our association has been established in 2000. So now we are operating for 22 years. All of the commercial banks are our members, but also we have key financial infrastructures as our members and some non-bank financial institutions as our member. I would like to turn into the Mongolia's banking sector's competitiveness. We produced these reports. We have selected 39 countries, and Mongolia at the moment is standing at 26th. So we are somewhere in the middle. So in terms of bank efficiency index, we are on the 31st. In terms of bank risk index, we are on the 29th. In terms of bank debt index, we are on the 20th. So overall, we are in the kind of mid-low level. And what at the moment, Mongolian banking in a stage of transformation. The parliament and the central bank has approved this banking sector reform policy document in 2020. Mongolia is now transforming into in IPOs, initial public offerings, which are mandated by the banking law, which was approved in 2021. After this, the Mongolian banks also have to meet the requirement which has been put. So basically, it has to decentralize its shareholding structure. So the parliament has put 20% ceiling in terms of one shareholder's shares. So now the banks have to comply that, and this is creating an opportunity for international investors own a share in the Mongolian banks. That's one development happening, and the deadline of this requirement is end of 2023. 3. All Mongolian banks have to reduce their single shareholders' share at the bank below 20%. So this basically creates an opportunity for international investors and banks to come into Mongolia. So during last 20 years, the central bank have been reluctant to issue licenses to foreign banks, and so far we don't have any foreign bank or foreign bank branch in Mongolia. We only have 3 foreign bank representative offices in Mongolia, and others. So now the central bank is, and also policymakers are shifting their stance. So they are welcoming foreign investors and foreign financial institutions to come into Mongolia and start its operation. So, and also they are looking into, the central bank is at the moment is drafting a law on the investment banking. So the parliament is looking into approving this law within this autumn session. So there is also opportunity for investment banks to start its operation in Mongolia.
Okay, Amai, if I may, maybe I start off with a question. You mentioned that 90% of Mongolia's exports go to China. At the moment, the economy is slowing down quite substantially in China. What impact do you see that having on the, especially on the Mongolian banks and for the exporters themselves? Is there any alternative they can explore or already are exploring when China is buying less?
The PRC's government has been implementing this zero COVID policy starting basically for the last 2 years, right? So this highly affected the Mongolia's export, especially during this year, because in 2021 the spread of the COVID pandemic in China was quite limited, but starting this year, in the first half of this year, the spread was high, and that's why the border crossing points were closed for many months with Mongolia. So this affected the major trade imports with China, and affected the Mongolian exports. So you can see unfortunately, Mongolia hasn't been able to find other markets to diversify, and that's really great now showing its negative effects to the Mongolian economy. But one positive development was that the commodity prices were significantly higher compared to the previous years, and that's why the total exports, even though the export in terms of quantity has decreased, the overall export wasn't that bad. So that's good news. And also starting the second half of this year, where the export has been started to increase in terms of quantity. That's having a positive effect. The balance of payment is still, it's on the trade side, right? We now started to have a positive impact, but overall balance of payments are deficit of 2 billion USD starting from this year. So we've lost, our reserves has decreased from 4.6 to 2.3 billion tugriks at the moment, but that's sufficient for 4 to 5 months imports. So it's not that critically low. It's above the international average international levels of adequacy of the reserves, but we are at the moment facing balance of payment pressure. And I could say it's a little bit of a crisis. So even though the Mongolian tugrix has depreciated by 17%, the inflation was also throughout the year around 14 to 16%. So it's on par, and so I see that depreciation is on the I have to say that not that critical level. This, of course, is affecting the Mongolian banking sector, specifically in terms of dollar lendings, but luckily Mongolian banking system in terms of assets, it's not that dollarized. So only 6% of total lending being issued, it's dollar denominated, so the impact is lower. The NPL levels haven't been increasing throughout the year. It has been quite stable, so the impact is lower, I would say.
Mm-hmm. What is the average NPL level right now in the industry?
Traditionally, it has been quite high. Meaning like it's 2 digits, but now it's around 10%. So 1 out of 10 loans are being at its NPLs. Yeah.
There's a follow-on question on you briefly alluded to that already. Most countries in Asia and in the world, for that matter, have moved on in terms of the virus situation, except for China and I can say Hong Kong here. What is the situation in Mongolia? Are there still restrictions related to the virus, and is there any program by the banks to help borrowers who cannot service their loans because of the virus impact?
Yeah, so let me show you some slides. Just to show one slide on your previous question. This is the bank loan quality at the moment in Mongolia, and you can see this in red. Mining sector has been, the NPLs of the mining sector has increased significantly, right? Now it's like 33%, and that's understandable because of the current situation with the exports. Otherwise, the other sectors are quite, the loan quality has also improved. The major dragging down effect sector is the mining sector. Regarding your question, there was this, if you can see this bank loan growth slide, during this COVID pandemic, the economy started to go down, and the bank loan portfolio was also going down, and that also had negative effects to the overall economy as well, because banks started to see risks in the economy, and the banks didn't know where this pandemic was going, so they were reluctant to issue new lendings. And starting from 2021, the government has introduced the support program for the SMEs. It's so-called 10 trillion Tugruk economic recovery program, and the government started providing subsidies for interest rates for those SMEs which are keeping the labor force intact, so employment intact. So that's the program which was initiated in mid-2021, and you can see the impact. So the economy has, the loan, bank loan started to grow, and now at the moment it's like around 23% increase overall compared to last year, and that also helped the economy to recover. And now the economy is growing by 1.9%.
There's another question by the audience. Is there any credit rating agency in Mongolia?
Big international players are doing the credit rating at the moment for the sovereign and international bonds, and also they do they do the ratings for our banks. But we don't have, at the moment, we don't have credit rate domestic local credit agency rating agencies, and those, and for I mean specifically for local debt instruments.
The next question is about foreign investment in the Mongolian banking sector. You already mentioned that will be facilitated going forward, or the central bank is trying to make it more easy. The question is, what would be the attractive areas for foreign banks to invest in? I guess the market is 3 million people, so it's not a very large market. Which areas would foreign investors target?
The retail market is comparatively small, right? So it's only 3 million people, and overall the economy size is only like 15 billion USD. So it's a small market, but Mongolia is strong potential for growth in the mining sector. For instance, one big project in copper, which is led by the Rio Tinto, the mining conglomerate. It's called OT project, and this project, for instance, 5-6 million project, right? And there are potentials. It started basically in 2010, and it's now finishing the development. The underground mines would be operational next year, but the open pit mine was operational since mid 2010. It's only one project which is valued 5-6 billion investment in Mongolia, and this is the fourth biggest mine in the world in terms of copper. So, and Mongolia has many of potential similar potential deposits we do have, and so if the banks are coming in, probably they would look into those businesses, right? So serve those businesses, provide financing to those businesses which are developing mines in Mongolia.
There are two questions or two viewers who would like to know a bit more about the Mongolian Bankers Association. What are your activities? How do you support the banking industry, and what are the major challenges you see for the Mongolian banking industry?
So we do the similar type of work which our colleagues from other associations do. So basically we do policy advocacy work. So also heavily involved in the policy making processes at the parliament, where they have discussions on specific piece of legislation. We usually part of the working group which discusses this and drafts the changes and so on. So we do that. We also very active to work with the central bank on the policy and regulation and establishment. So we actively provide our comments, our suggestions, and so that's mostly the part of the work we do for the advocacy. But maybe for the banks, it would be interesting to hear what we have achieved in terms of project implementation. For instance, we started this project, Mongolian Sustainable Finance, in terms of Mongolian sustainable finance. And this project we started 10 years ago, and 5 years ago we established a sister association, which is called Mongolian Sustainable Finance Association. And we've been able to get green taxonomy approved by the central bank. Also, we've been able to get approval by the Mongolian Financial Stability Committee, a document called Mongolian Sustainable Finance Roadmap until 2030. Also, we've been able to get approval from the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, approval of 28 million USD for green financing for our Mongolian Green Finance Corporation, which is another project of ours, which was supposed to become public, private, and international project. This approval was the first approval by the GCF as equity financing in the world for a startup project. Green financing, we successfully implemented also this project with GIZ in terms of on energy efficient housing. The first house got approval of their age certificate, and it was selected by the World Energy Forum as top 10 successful projects in the field, and BBC came in to do a documentary about it and so on. So yeah, our work in terms of project implementation is quite been successful so far. Also, we have our sister organization, which we also established. It's Mongolian Banking Finance Academy, which have role of training of the banking staff and also conducting researches. And that's what we also do for our banks. We also do a lot of networking events to make it closer between the banks, and also between the banks and policymakers, and banks and international organizations, for instance. And we are also a discussion and networking. We have a discussion and networking platform, which we call our professional councils. Each specific, we have 14 of them, and each council, for instance, on risk management, the council on risk management, each division or department heads gather together once in a month. They discuss the common issues and they come up with solutions. Or if they request us to conduct some activities, some projects, or some policy advocacy works, then we follow through with that request. Is the association. And one major part is, of course, on the financial literacy. We do World Savings Day, Global Money Week, and so we do social media campaigns and so on. So we do also a lot of financial literacy work together with the central bank. That was quite interesting to see that in post-Soviet countries, the association doesn't do a lot in terms of financial literacy. It's mostly driven by the central banks, but in Mongolia, we are in the leading role in terms of financial literacy.
Thank you very much. I think that gives us a good picture of the activities of the MBA. You seem to have raised some interest here in foreign investment. There's another question from the audience. What are the guidelines on foreign investment in banking? Are only foreign financial institutions allowed to invest, or can individuals also invest?
With this new opportunity, investing into existing banks in Mongolia it's not restricted. So it can be individual, it can be for an institution, anybody. Regarding the establishing a branch or a subsidiary in Mongolia, that of course would need to have some expertise, also experience in working in other countries and so on. So that's the requirement by the central bank. They would, of course, banks to be operating in Mongolia. So that's the different case. Yeah, but invest into Mongolian banks now freely available to anybody.
There's a question on the regulatory environment. What Basel standards do the banks in Mongolia apply? Is it Basel II still?
Mostly Basel II, but the regulator in the capacity of the regulator, the central bank of Mongolia, is quite high. So gradually shifting into Basel III. So some of the regulations are already shifted to Basel III, like elements of the Basel III.
There's another question here about fintechs in Mongolia, especially in what we say emerging markets with a larger part of our unbanked population. I don't know if that applies to Mongolia too, but in these markets we see a lot of fintech development. What is the situation here in Mongolia?
Mongolian financial sector is bank dominated because 90% of total assets are banks' assets, and non-bank financial institution and capital markets all together is only 10%, right? Fintech development is started, I would say, 5 years ago, and since then it grew quite significantly in terms of, the number of companies providing the services. And banks themselves have been investing into the technologies quite significantly. And so banks also started to provide a lot of fintech technology-based services to the customers. It's the association we started to invite our fintech companies as our members, those which have received some kind of a license, for instance, e-money issuance, like payments processing and so on. So we started to invite them to our association, and they are now also, we have like 11 fintech members in our association. And that's only those fintech companies which have received some kind of license. But some of them do not require to get the license. And those include like online lending, for instance, right? There are also companies started to providing insurance products to the customers through technology and like mobile applications, or like using the Facebook Messenger and so on. And then also there are companies which are trying to work in the physical terminals. Like you can go there and get some insurance products from there. There are companies which are trying to also develop like software and services for the POS machines, POS machines. And then also companies trying to do payments, make it more innovative, make it more easy for the customers. So it's quite, within only 5 years, I think the Mongolian fintech sector grew quite significantly.
There's one maybe last question here, which probably will give you a good chance for a summary. The question is, what is your outlook for the Mongolian banks in 2023? What are the main challenges they will face, and how do you expect them to deal with these challenges?
At the moment, all of our systemically important banks, which are 5 out of these 14, they are required by law to do the IPO, as I told before. and that should happen before mid next year. And that's why our bank's very busy to do the IPO. The first one has already done the IPO in like basically last week. They concluded the IPO and started the trades on the secondary market. Then so we expect to have another 2 IPOs within this year, and another 2 in the coming year. So that's where the banks are busy now. And then one major challenge, of course, would be the previously Mongolian banks were at the central bank, and now the Financial Regulatory Commission has also some supervisory role with the new law. So the challenge, of course, for the banks would be also to have to work with the 2 organizations, and also for our regulators themselves, it's a challenge how to do consolidated supervision and so on. So that's the challenging part. Secondly, maybe if this zero COVID policy continues, but the expectation in general public is that after this Communist Party gathering, which is happening now in the PRC, this very tight policy will be loosened, and that would help to increase our export, because Chinese policymakers are very strict at the moment in terms of border crossings, and even not, they're trying to minimize the human interaction between the drivers, the cold truck drivers, between the inspection officer and so on. So this is creating a lot of unforeseen difficulties and so on. So what I'm trying to say is, if the export will start, won't start soon, we might face real balance of payment crisis, and that would, of course, will have an effect for the banking sector, and that would increase the policy rate. The IMF might come in and so on. So increase the tension between the businesses and the banks, right? So they would see the cost of the borrowing as the burden to the businesses, and that might also affect the public sentiment, and eventually that could also lead to the interest to the politicians to start intervening and so on. So that's kind of little.
Well, thank you very much. I think this was instructive to learn about Mongolia and its banking system. And yes, keep our fingers crossed for economic recovery. Let's hope China opens up again soon. And I hope to see you soon in person at the next ABA event.